Welcome, welcome, welcome to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, City Manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. Thank you again for tuning in. We had a few technical difficulties today, so we got a little bit of a late start, not to any fault of anyone here at the station or on the show, but it is a matter of life. So thank you for staying with us and being patient. And so happy to be on the air again. Thank you for clicking in and listening in. As always, thanks to the leadership of the mayor and the city council for the opportunity to serve as your city manager here in the city of Muskegon Heights. We have a great show for you today, as always, but I want to give special thanks to the people who have shared their comments over the last week. And let me make sure that we have the comments up here. I want to always and continue to encourage you to participate in the show by connecting with us on Facebook and linking in and taking advantage of the opportunity to put your comments here in the show. As the show says, reaching new heights, we're all about moving forward and tapping into the excellent potential that this community has and making sure that we take the steps necessary to reach that potential. I mean, that's what it's all about, and reaching new heights. And so many wonderful things that we have going on. We had a chance in our last show to be able to scratch the surface of a number of the things that are ongoing, have been done, and are on tap to begin here in Muskegon Heights. And we're going to go into a deep dive on part of that today with the Rowan Park conceptual vision. And so I'm excited about that. But before we get into that, I would like to welcome my guests to the show today. Let's see. All right. We got you here.
I am here.
Yes. Welcome to the show, Ms. McCarty. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Bell. It's always a pleasure to see you serving our community. So thank you so much for being here among the other elected officials that we have in Muskegon Heights, Norton Shores, and Muskegon.
There you go. I don't envy the elected officials. Unfortunately, I don't have to go through that process. It's an important part of our democratic process, no doubt, but it is one area that that I'm thankful that I am not involved in. But from the public servant side of it, on the administrative side, all day, any day, all day long. So, but I had the opportunity to meet you because you show up to the council meetings on a regular basis, and I've seen you at a number of different events, and I know that you are a longtime resident of Muskegon Heights, that you come from a long line, distinguished line, and I see you moving and shaking, and so I thought it would be a great opportunity. Yeah, there you go. To touch base with you and get your perspectives on reaching new heights in Muskegon Heights. Why don't you share with the listeners and the viewers a little bit about your background so that if they don't already know you, that they can get to know you better.
Right. So it's so funny that it's reaching new heights because elevation is part of what my platform is, serving as a candidate for county commissioner for District 7.
Okay.
So I love the fact that that is your platform, and it works in tandem with one of my platforms is elevation. And so Sid McCarty, obviously been here quite some time. It's so funny because someone at the radio station, I haven't seen her since high school, and she's like, Sid, you've always had like 5 jobs. Like you it's like, as soon as I heard you were running for county commissioner, she's like, yep, that sounds like Sid. So people that know me, they know that I've had my effort in the community with Urban League, NAACP, voter registration, the Michigan Smoke Free campaign. I remember receiving the call from my mom, and she says, it worked. I was like, what worked? And she was like, your efforts worked, because I had quit my job. At the time I was working at a restaurant, and I said, I'm done with smoking inside. I don't want to subject myself to this. And so it took us several years, but I think between many people quitting their jobs and campaigning and protesting, we were able to pass that. So that was one of the initiatives. And Hurricane
Excellent.
Katrina, I went down there for media correspondence. And Gina 6, Louisiana, the civil rights protest that the overall media tried to downplay and make it seem that there was only a couple hundred people down there. But I hopped a bus and went down there to
That's
do
some
my
commitment right there.
right,
Hop the
right.
bus.
Yeah, a serious one to no man's land, Louisiana. And but it was important to me to let people know what was happening. And I was at the front of that march with Martin Luther King III and Michael Baisden and Reverend Jesse Jackson. Like, there were so many of us at the front of that march, and there were several 100,000 people. So I've been dedicated to informing my community for a long time. This is not me being new, this is a renew.
And that must have been a thrilling experience to be part of something that meant so much, that was that big. I can relate back to how I felt with the Forsyth, Georgia March.
Mm.
And you're probably too young to remember Forsyth, Georgia, but um, uh, it just gave me goosebumps to be part of that march and to stand there while the folks that organized it explained what to do when you're doing the march, and if people throw bottles, how to protect yourself, and if you get hit, how to roll with it and drop and
Mm.
cover. All those things that were critical pieces of the civil rights movement marches that we benefited from as a generation after the initial push of civil rights, the civil rights movement. I'm not going to say after the civil rights movement, because I firmly believe we're still in the middle of it, and we
Back.
probably will for many years. So, but yeah, and so I can imagine that you felt similarly with your experience down standing elbow to elbow with MLK the third.
Yes, extremely, because we didn't get any type of preparation, but going down there, they they closed up shop, the entire city, the town,
I can imagine.
totally shut down, no bathrooms, no restaurants. They boarded up their homes. There were signs up saying, "Get out of here, we don't want you here." Red Cross was the only entity that was down there setting up as we walked around the city, and they had snacks and water for us. And
Right.
yes, they barricaded themselves inside of the city hall. There were dogs out there. The images were very reflective of something that you talk about from the 1960s. So having that experience, but being able to relay it back here to people in Muskegon to let people
Hmm.
know there were several 100,000 people, and that was the first time I ever felt entirely comfortable to hold up the fist and nobody looked at you like, well, what you doing? What is this like?
Right.
This informing the community is really important. That's why I run on transparency.
Hmm.
And transparency is not just the level of, okay, telling you where the money is going and how it's being spent, but it's just educating our community in what's happening. And
Well,
we have to, mm,
let me interrupt you before you go further into that. I want to make sure that we have the context of how you are connected to Muskegon Heights.
yeah.
So, did you grow up here? Did you go to high school here? Did you move in,
Mm.
last week, a couple months ago? Is your family from here? Talk to me about that.
The McCarty legacy stems back from over 70 years ago when my grandmother and my grandfather relocated here from Mississippi
Okay.
in hopes of having a better opportunity. And my grandfather worked in the Lakey foundry that many African American men came up from the South
Hmm.
to have proper wages. And he and many of the houses in Muskegon Heights at that time, still Caucasian, but many of the houses served as homes where they were sitting 6, 8, and 10 people in a two-bedroom, one bathroom house, and
That's
that's what my
discrimination.
grandfather did.
Hmm.
Yep. And then my grandmother worked as a seamstress and eventually worked at Sears Roebuck. I have to use the full name, Sears Roebuck, for many years. Became
Right.
very intricate in Queen Esther Baptist Church, which they have a conference room named after my grandfather. And then over the years, many people know my uncles, OC, who was integral in Muskegon Heights for athletics and academia. Everybody's hardcore principal, teacher that they always have stories about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I run into people that have great stories about my mom being the adventurous driver's ed teacher. And I watched her, I watched her be a fighter for the deaf community because being in the 70s, she was one of the only African Americans and African American women pursuing deaf education because that's still very rare.
Mm-hmm.
So I've watched my family, be the first or be the motivators. And it's not like we ever had a conversation, but you lead by example.
There you
And and I know that I've always grown up by you treat people the way you want to be treated. And
go. That.
a story I can recall is my mom and I were at a Walgreens years ago when I was a kid, and there was a someone that was special needs, had a disability, and they just randomly came up to her and hugged her, and then they had some type of saliva and just a lot of things happening with their bodily functions that they can't control. My
Mm-hmm.
mom did not even flinch. She doesn't know this person, they were a stranger, but she embraced that person
Right.
because this is how you treat people. So this is what I've learned. So having respect for people that have levels of disability, and just have everybody in the community is one.
Right. Well, I think it's clear that you come from good stock, from a good
We
root.
try.
Mm-hmm.
We try really hard. And I want that to be reflective in my campaign that this is, we come back to give back, right? And I really want to make sure that there's elevation, innovation, accountability in our community. And yes, clearly I've been here a long time and I had the opportunity to leave, get an education, get a bachelor's degree, get an MBA out of state, and then take all those resources from cities that I have lived in or ventured to. And
And where did you go out of state? Where did you get your degree?
my undergrad is in broadcasting and
Okay.
from University of Houston, and then I have an MBA from Southern New Hampshire University.
Okay.
And I started, but let me make it clear, I graduated from Muskegon High School. I was bred in Western Michigan Christian High School, and I went to MCC. So I'm always repping MCC,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they have always highlighted me in the alumni newsletters. Like I appreciate that they respect, okay?
That sounds like a whole lot of love. Huh?
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. That's good stuff.
So I've been able to see you come into the community, and I have to applaud you from coming from being on the outside to come in because you have really integrated yourself into a community that oftentimes does not receive newcomers or people they perceive to be new.
Mm-hmm.
And I put myself in your shoes, like I have to really give it up to you because
That's
you have
sweet.
made so many different connections, and I'm thinking, how do you do that so fast? Like that is tremendous. So I don't envy your
Yeah.
job either. But thank
That
you for being here.
that's a tribute to how I was raised, my parents, and the environment that I was raised in. Being in the military, moving every 16 months. You couldn't let any moss grow under your feet, otherwise you get left behind. And so, but genuinely, what it comes down to is understanding that no matter where you are or what you're doing, we all have the same experience. We're all trying to figure out how to live. We're all trying to figure out how to make a way. And
Mm,
there's very few handbooks out there other than the word that tell you how to do it. And so
amen to that.
um, the experience of being able to see different people try to do the same thing different ways, it's an eye-opening and rewarding experience to be exposed to that. So
Yes.
coming to this community, I was able to see the love and kindness in this community. That was just, all the places that I've been and all the places that I've seen. It is overwhelming, the friendliness and the warmth of this community. And that's
It's
truly
interesting
unique. Hmm.
because we take pride in knowing each other, right? When we talk about Muskegon Heights pride, we
Hmm.
take pride in being able to know we can go to Granny's house and your mama's house and your daddy's house,
Right.
and this, and like all the places I've been to or visited, this is probably the only city that I would just show up to somebody's house without calling. Normally, you better
Right.
call, text, or something, but here's like,
Right.
I'm gonna go to the house because I know they're there. It's okay. So that is one thing. What I
Hmm.
would like to see is I want us to take more pride in how we take care of the community, because pride isn't just a matter of us knowing each other, but it's not throwing trash outside of your car because you don't want to wait to take it home.
Hmm.
It's not throwing liquor bottles in front of people's homes. It's shoveling your snow, it's raking the leaves, it's all those things, right? So I feel like we have to take pride in our community if we want others to do the same.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And I feel that we have a lot in common being, my mother was a special education teacher in the school system for 30 some odd years. And she was that type of person that if you needed something to eat, you ate at Ma Bell's house. And, I can say that every kid in the neighborhood had been in our house at some point in time. And she treated them all like they were my brothers and sisters. And so I can definitely relate to what you're saying. But, I appreciate what you're saying about pride, and that's important. And we understand that a lot of what we fight with and a lot of the challenges that we are encountering addressing some of those issues are with people who don't live in our community,
Mhm.
people that come from outside of our community and don't respect our community. But we have to hold them accountable. Each of us, we have to come together as a community and say, we're not putting up with that. No matter where you're from, when you step into Muskegon Heights, you're going to respect this city, you're going to respect this community, and you are going to treat this community with all of those things, respect and honor. And
And
so,
that's where it starts with accountability,
mhm,
like land bank accountability, landlord accountability,
mhm,
and then community accountability
right.
as well. So we can't allow anyone to come in and then, buy up these lots that we could buy ourselves and
Mhm,
take care of them, which is what I did because I got tired of seeing some of these lots. And obviously I can't buy all of them, but enough for me to say, okay, I want to adopt. You know how like
mhm,
people adopt highways and they adopt pieces of land? We
yes.
all should be adopting a plot of empty, abandoned land and mowing the lawn, raking the leaves, doing something to it just to beautify it. And I have the signs because I know we have the signs that are available at Muskegon Heights, um,
Right.
that we
Coming
put up.
down to the city and grab a sign to show your support for the beautification campaign.
Yes,
Mhm,
fight the blight, which I'm on board for, and I ran down there to get mine.
mhm.
So
I
that
appreciate it.
this is important for us to set that standard. Um,
Now, you have mentioned a couple of times campaign.
mhm.
So, and you touched on you're running for what position now? Let's be clear. Uh,
I am
so,
running for Muskegon County Commissioner for District 7.
okay.
District 7 covers all of the precincts in Muskegon Heights. That's 1 through 4,
Mm,
Norton Shores Precinct 4, and Muskegon Precinct 6, 8, 9, and 11. And these are newly redistricted. So it happened last year and it will be enacted in January. So anyone that wins this year will take that seat. So we are
How
voting
many
August 2nd.
how many districts are there altogether?
So there are going to be 7 county commissioners. It was reduced from 9.
There you go. Yes. So it
There,
used to be nine, and now we only have seven. So,
and I have to put this out there. This is why the census is so important for us to complete. We
right.
have to take part because if we don't complete this census, it makes it look like we don't have more people in the Heights. And we're in reality, we have more people gravitating toward Muskegon Heights, but we have to have the funding to accommodate. So, as an example, if we have 20,000 people in Muskegon Heights, but the census reflects only 10, that means we're only going to get the amount of money for 10. So we
Right.
can talk about, well, there's not enough money for streets and this and cleanup and all the things that we need. You have to fill out the census. And so it reflects that we were down 1,000 people. And so that contributed to the redistricting of the area.
Right. But if you don't stand up and be counted, then you get left behind. You get lost. And we only had a 62% response rate on our census, and that reflects in our population status, which affects the state revenue share. I firmly believe our population went up, um,
Mhm.
but the census says that our population went down. And
Correct.
so we are now stuck with the challenge of being able to provide services for a larger population without the revenue that the state owes us for providing those services based on the real population. And
Correct.
so, part of that is on the state, but part of that is on us here in our community for not making sure that we stand up and be counted. So
That's
thank you for bringing
community
that back up.
accountability.
Yes.
And
So,
part of my one of my goals, one of my objectives is really to bridge that gap, because District 7 covers so many different types of communities that we've been merged with between Norton Shores and Muskegon, that it's crucial to have someone that has the education, the knowledge, the communication style to be able to talk to a diverse group of people, different audiences, to have the patience to listen to what they're trying to relay, and then have the patience to curate a strategy to culminate everyone's concerns and needs, and then be able to execute it.
mhm,
And I've been an adjunct professor, and I've dealt with all these different learning styles of people. And we have kinesthetic learners, and we have auditory and visual learners,
right.
and you have to be able to have the patience to accommodate that. And I want everyone to be informed. When you go to my website, which is sidmccarty.us, that's
Mhm,
SIDMCCARTY.us, I have information on there. If you're not registered to vote, there's a link that will take you directly to the website to register to vote. If you don't know who your county commissioner is currently, then there's a link to go there. At minimum, I want to educate you. If you don't vote for me for county commissioner, then at least be educated in the candidate that you're voting for.
right. And with the coming wave, and I'm trying to say this as delicately as possible, after January 6th of last year,
Mhm.
um, after the election, what happened there, we have to take it upon ourselves to pursue and achieve 100% registration. Because if we don't stand up and be counted on an extraordinary level, and when I say 100%, 100%, so that we can fight this coming wave of change in attitude and sentiment towards the whole notion of democracy. That the democratic process doesn't matter if your guy or your person doesn't win, and
Mhm.
therefore it's not valid. We have to fight the fight even more severely, stringently, by being 100%. There's no
Yeah.
room for slacking.
And that 100% that you speak of, that starts with us, because we have
Hmm.
this um, divisive behavior between our community as African Americans, where we don't always support each other, or we don't always communicate with each other. And then we have in between our race, but then also the barrier between genders.
Hmm.
And right now, Ms. Realistine Wilkins, she's our county commissioner for District 7. It's
Right.
currently called District 1. When she leaves, then we won't have another African American woman on county commission, which is why another reason that I'm running. It's crucial for the Black woman to be represented in all aspects, and especially on the county commission level.
Hmm.
So if I were to assume the seat, I would be essentially replacing the most seasoned individual on the council with the youngest, because I would be making Muskegon County history by being elected the youngest county commissioner, because I'm in my 30s.
Oh.
Look, we're gonna say 30s, okay? And and we need to make that history, but we need to make sure that Black women are accounted for on
Hmm.
all levels, right?
Now
So
you can't replace real esteem.
oh no, at all. Miss Realistine cannot
No,
be
you
replaced.
might be taking the seat that she was
Right.
filling, right? In a
Yeah.
matter of speaking, because it was condensed from 9 to 7, so it's not exactly the same. But you know,
Correct.
there's no replacing somebody with the legacy and the history that she has brought to our community. So,
Exactly. When I sat down with her and spoke with her, I had to thank her for opening these doors, because much of what she was put through, being the first Black woman mayor of Muskegon Heights, I feel like I'm being subjected to much of that discrimination within my own community, being a woman, and then being a Black woman and being a young Black woman. There's a lot of adversaries. There are a lot of people that do not wish me well. and that do not want to include me on their reindeer games. And it's unfair, and that's something that we deal with.
Right.
As women, we have enough, but to deal with it within our own community, we shouldn't have to do that. So
Sure.
bridging that gap is one thing that I'm all for. And I had to thank her for setting the tone and opening the door for Black women to continue to be in politics. And hopefully I can encourage another young Black woman to do the same.
Understood. Understood. Well, that's outstanding. Now, you had mentioned your platform, and I don't know exactly who is in the running, and I invite the other candidates to come on the show and to be able to be part of reaching new heights as you are today. But share with the listeners and the viewers what your platform is all about.
Mm-hmm. My platform that is, yes, it's time.
Okay.
It's time for accountability.
Mhm.
It's time for completion, elevation, innovation, and transparency.
Okay.
Accountability means that land bank, landlord, and community accountability. If we do something good or bad, we own up to it. Completion. If we start a project or we claim that we're going to do something, we do it. Elevation. That means that we're going to raise the heights. We're going to raise our expectations, change the status quo and what we've expected in the past, but also educate ourselves enough in order to render it. Innovation is being creative and affordable housing and connect and bridging that gap between our neighboring partners in Norton Shores and Muskegon and North Muskegon, that we can see them elevating and changing and innovating and creating new ideas and embracing. So we need to avail ourselves to make sure that we can innovate, so we don't look at Peck Street and Muskegon and Peck Street and Muskegon Heights and see the difference. And then transparency means that we talk about budget and where's the money going? How much did we receive?
Hmm.
Creating an ROI, return on investment, and determining what the KPIs are when we do a plan or any type of
KPI
project. That's going to be a key predictive index, indicator for some
indicator.
people.
There
So
you
we
go.
have, key predictive index or key predictive indicator for those that don't know. And what that means is that we're going to set what are the objectives, and
Mhm.
usually they need to be qualified and quantified.
Right.
Okay, so it's a quality in there, and
Hmm.
then what's that
Right.
numeric threshold that we have. And transparency means that if somebody doesn't understand, then you break it down to them.
Right.
And so, as an example, I know I had a lot of people that question the ARPA money, right? And it's like, well, look,
Mhm.
fixing the streets, that is, $100 million+ project. Okay. We only received about 10, if I'm accurate, $10.2 million.
10.684772.
Okay. There we go. See? And so you can't take a small piece of bubble gum and wrap it around a basketball. It does
Mhm.
not work.
Right.
Are you gonna? You can't actually encompass the entire thing. So
Hmm.
what I'd rather do is take that small piece of bubble gum and wrap it around a tennis ball and see how much that stretches.
Hmm.
So as an example, just illustrating to people that there are some things that are realistic and there are things that aren't. And I feel like when people can digest the information, they'll
Right.
have a seat. They'll stop complaining if they just understood what was happening. So that's where the transparency comes into play.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm impressed with the way that you laid that out. And I want to throw this question to you. So, what do you imagine that you will be able to do differently, building on the work that Realistine has done, Ms. Wilkins, or
Mhm.
Commissioner, has done to be able to create the coalition to bring projects to Muskegon Heights? Because you mentioned the American Rescue Plan funding, and we had an excellent presentation back in 2019 or the beginning of 2020 when we brought in some speakers. I think it was the chamber that talked
Mhm.
about how you elevate an entire region um, to achieve the best possible outcomes for a region. And they made the argument that you have to focus on MVPs, the most vulnerable people or population. And that's where you invest your money and you lift that sector of your community, and all other sectors rise with it, as opposed to putting money into making the sectors that don't need it the most a little bit better. You put that money into the sectors that need it the most and raise them up. And it was an excellent presentation. I remember it to this day. It was shortly after I came to the city. And I have not seen that reflected in the actions and activities of the region to focus on those areas. And I don't take anything away from Grand Haven, and I'm happy that they got the millions of dollars grant that they got. But at the same time, Grand Haven's doing well, and the city of Muskegon Heights is still lagging from the 2008 deficit recession, whatever you want to call it.
And before.
I'm not. Yes, I'm not going to argue with you there. You're right, but at least that. And so, to see the American Rescue Plan money that the county gets be focused on thus far, all the money hasn't been spent yet, so the jury's still out on that. Focused on projects that are only located in the county seat, the city of Muskegon, and no projects yet that have been identified outside of that little bubble. And I would argue that the county seat, the city of Muskegon, is not the most vulnerable population, that there are opportunities in other areas of the city, of the county of Muskegon, that have bigger needs. So that was a long question to say, how are you going to nuance building those coalitions to be able to bring that funding to a community like ours that would help us elevate and therefore help the whole region elevate?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. One thing is, when you go into a new situation, you always conduct a needs assessment. And a needs assessment is working with those people that are in leadership, that are the decision makers, and then also the people that are going to be the most impacted, and ask what are their needs. And then you identify what are the resources to fix those needs. And then you look at the resources that you have in your back pocket to address those needs and utilize those resources. So the needs assessment is going to be crucial. How I've already started that process is being present, going to city council meetings, hearing people's complaints, looking online and reading people's comments and their questions, and then being a resident here for all these years. And I know what we need. Like I'm here. I grew up here, right? So that's one level of that, and then also being availing yourself to your peers, to people that are going to be on that are other commissioners, city commissioners, because from my understanding, they always don't work in tandem, and that we're missing out on bridging the gap that county commissioners and city commissioners could be working together. That's second. Thirdly, it would be making sure that if there are resources available in Norton Shores and my precincts in Muskegon, that we are getting that over here in Muskegon Heights as well. So we need to get our fair share. And then working in tandem with city council, with you as city manager, and with the mayor, but other organizations that have presented themselves, that have said, hey, we would like to help. We have to be receptive to them, because we can't continue to say, oh, well, you only come into our community when you want our vote, or you only come in our community to take something, right? So instead of seeing them as the opponent and getting defensive, we have to just come with open arms. We can't keep throwing the Bible out there, but we don't actually utilize it and skip over those pages. We're being open. So we have to do that. That's one thing. Another thing I would do: tap into resources that are currently available and expand on those. And then lastly, it would be hosting community events where people can meet me. Like today, I'll be at the US Cafe from 3 until 5 p.m. with a Meet the Candidate. And I'll be serving appetizers. It's a way for people to find out what my platform is, to meet me live, and to talk to me. And I'll answer any questions that they have that are within my bailiwick for them. And then also April 30th is another fundraiser and campaign, Meet the Candidate at Capone's from 1 to 3. That's another opportunity for us to toast some champagne and appetizers and meet other people, to network, because what we don't do, I don't think we do enough of, is start bridging that gap. There's no reason that a railroad track should divide our city.
There you go.
and divide resources. A railroad track should not determine how much money is coming over here. So as county commissioner, that's one thing that I would be able to strategically do, is to open that door, break down the barriers of the railroad track, and try to figure out how can we take, how can we get what they're getting over there right over here.
And I would add, if I could, to that, just being in a position to understand the bigger dynamics of what's going on in the region, in the county, and being able to articulate the connection between success in Muskegon Heights to the success of the entire region. And I think that's what that presentation did back in 2019-20. It talked about how if you elevate a community like Muskegon Heights, that has direct ancillary benefit to all the communities around here.
Correct.
And so it becomes a win-win, a conversation about a win-win, because they made the picture very clear that if you've got a most vulnerable population that is being ignored, it is like trying to run a race with a parachute on your back. And so if you want to be able to run the race and finish at the top speed, you need to make sure that you take care of the most vulnerable populations in the areas that need it the most. And then everything else becomes streamlined
Right.
forward.
And what people don't realize, that other communities they're banking off of us. So like we're being used.
Our demographics,
Yes.
yes,
And
are part of.
we're not getting our free lunch. So everybody else is getting their free lunch off of us, and we're not getting ours. So that has to change. But how we do that is we have someone in a position that wants to learn, that has the passion, and passion goes a long way. But let's be honest, you and I both know lots of people in the community or in our lives that we've met that are passionate about something, but they just don't have the resource or the knowledge or the education in order to do something about that passion. And that's not always the fault of theirs. But when you have someone that is equipped, then utilize them. I think about, you call a plumber, something's wrong at your house, right? The plumber comes over and they start asking you for the tools. Now they have a tool belt. They have the shirt on that says plumber. But then they start saying, "Oh, do you have a wrench? Do you have a screwdriver? And do you have?" And you're just like, "Well, wait a minute. You're the plumber. Why are you asking me for all of these tools?" Well, I am the plumber. Don't you see my tool belt? Don't you see? Like that.
And I hope that tool belt is holding their pants all the way up.
Right. Yes.
That's a whole nother story, right?
So yes, like I just want it to be the plumber that has some of those tools that I can pull out. And guess what? If I don't have all those tools, I want to be that person that someone's going to say, "Let me give you this tool." And that's what I can do as county commissioner. So I want to present myself where someone will want to come to me to help us, because that's how we're going to bridge this gap.
Well, I want to say that it's impressive. And one of the things that I think as a community we have to do better is by cultivating people to fill roles when long-time representatives step out of a position, to be able to recruit and cultivate young talent. And that's, you said passion goes a long way, but with that passion, you have to have the knowledge and the willingness to put in the hard work. And we have to do a better job of recruiting folks like you who have that passion, who clearly have the intelligence and the knowledge to be able to articulate what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, in the way that it needs to be said, so that the voice is heard not only in the community, but across the region. And so I find that to be one of the aspects that, in my opinion, is really impressive about you.
Thank you.
Your passion, your youth, and your knowledge, and your willingness and ability to step forward and put yourself in a vulnerable position. And that's what leadership is. My mother used to say, the higher you go up the totem pole, the more of your rear end people see.
Yes.
So
facts on that too.
Right. And putting yourself out there is a vulnerable act, but it is an admirable act nonetheless.
I believe
So
in our community, and anybody that comes back to give back, you have to believe. And anybody that stays here and comes here, that selects to come here as you have, right? You believe that there is potential, and you believe that there are resources to tap into, like Mona Lake and like Lake Michigan. These are all assets that we have to start leveraging. There are
right,
rapports and relationships that we have to start leveraging, and our leadership has to reflect that. And I look forward to doing that, working more with you, with the mayor, with city council, with my county commissioners, with our city commissioners, and anyone else that wants to avail themselves to me and say, "Hey, Sid, let's do this thing." Yes,
right.
it's time.
That's right. Well, I know you've got an event, so we got to get you out of here quickly, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about support that you need. And I know the election process is a difficult process running for office. And I harken back to when I ran President Obama's campaign in Indianapolis, the amount of work and effort. Obviously, that was on a different scale, but fundamentally it's still the same thing. You need legs, you need arms, you need hearts. So,
Like right now, I'm like an octopus with all these
right.
tentacles and just every so yes. And every time I think about this, I raise my hands and I receive all the volunteers that I believe God will send me, because
Mhm.
there are so many opportunities to serve, and people that need volunteer hours, or you want this political experience, or you want to help make history by helping to elect the youngest county commissioner and helping to keep a Black woman on the county commission for Muskegon,
Mhm.
then you can register at my website, sidmccarty.us. That's SIDMCCARTY.us. I need event coordinators, volunteers to hand out flyers, people to help out at fundraising events, to help fundraise. All of those are opportunities. And I'll tell you, I have worked on so many different political campaigns:
Mhm.
presidential, governor, secretary of state, city and county council across the country. I've been like a private liaison. There is nothing like being in the background and knowing what's happening, because I remember making calls and seeing my mom's name on one of the call lists. I immediately jumped up and said, "Okay, what is this list? What are we doing? What's happening?"
Mhm.
And they said, "That's a list of homeowners that
Mhm.
consistently vote in this territory." I said, "Okay, cool." And then I
Great.
saw my grandmother's name on there and people I knew. I said, "Okay." So, and they put them at the top of the list. These are people that they're going to target. So it's little nuggets like that that you'll learn working on political campaigns.
Mhm.
So join the campaign. And then also, if you would like to donate, that 5, that 10, that $20 goes a long way, because we need it. Look, yard signs are expensive.
Mhm.
And ads are expensive and flyers are expensive. But on my website, I put down where your money is going. I tell you, I'm transparent. This
Mhm.
is where your donations are. So today, when you come out to the Us Cafe from 3 until 5, you can contribute $5, 10, 20, 50, whatever you have that
Mhm.
will put us forward, because uh, this is like helping to serve the community,
Sure.
and respecting someone that wants to give back. So this is just a recycling of an investment. It's a sowing of the seed for your community.
Mhm. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for joining us for the show, and thank you for putting your heart on the line for this opportunity to fill this leadership position. Um, and I do want to acknowledge some of the comments that were made from Mr. Roberson Sr., from Jennifer Ross, and from Ms. Aubrey. So many positive and complimentary comments on here from Mr. William Kitchen as well, and Vincent Payne Sr. Thank you for chiming in and your comments and supporting um, not just this interview, but also Ms. McCarty and her efforts. So um,
I
thank you,
appreciate.
and I hope to be able to bring you back at some point and
I
continue
welcome.
the conversation, whether it's from a political position or whether it's just from the standpoint of being another strong servant in the community.
Yep, we have to get on revenue generation ideas, so we'll table that.
All right.
Thank
Got,
you so much, Mr. Bell, for having me. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for supporting this station. This is where I started my radio career at 103. So thank you for all of those that are going to vote. If you haven't registered to vote, please exercise that. Go to my website and register to vote. Yes, it's time. Thank you so much.
thank you. All right. Well, stand by, everybody, because I do want to touch on one of the questions that came up. Ms. Aubrey asked if there was some time to be able to check in with longtime businesses in the city who are going through some problems. And yes, there is time. I most definitely need to make time for that. And we will be doing that. So let me know the specifics of it, and let's see what we can get going in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break here because I want to make sure that with our timing, we may need to push back the Rowan Park thing to our next show, or maybe we have 5 minutes left at the end of this show to be able to do that. So uh, I want you to stand by, and we'll come back after the commercial break and either wrap it up or finish up with the Rowan Park vision. So,
As an Olympic athlete, I prepare for everything. So when I became pregnant, I thought I was ready. But at 32 weeks, I was diagnosed with severe preeclampsia and had an emergency C-section. Looking back, had I known the warning signs, I would have talked to my doctor sooner. Too many women die of pregnancy-related complications, and most are preventable. If you or someone you know is pregnant or recently had a baby, learn the warning signs. It could help save her life. Hear her.
When smoking gives you COPD, you learn to lie a little bit. You make up excuses like, I have to get my keys. You guys go on. Anything so you can walk at your own pace. I used to do that all the time. Those lies don't work anymore. My tip is, the worst lies are the lies you tell yourself. Like smoking isn't that dangerous.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
okay, I think we're back live now. And it looks like because of the technical difficulties, we have a few minutes left. So let's just quickly jump into the Reaching New Heights Rowan Park Band Together installation. So this past week, we had an opportunity to connect with a benefactor for Muskegon Heights who is willing and interested in putting some public art in the city of Muskegon Heights. And so what you're looking at on your screen is just a conceptual presentation that was done about the vision for the downtown. And part of this was already included in the vision project, and this is just an extension of that to be able to take it one step further in the process of renewing our downtown area. We've talked about already the effort to get funding to pave Broadway, and so this would be what we're getting ready to look at in this presentation is a partnership with that concept of paving the Broadway downtown, actually from Glade to Getty, but this would kind of piggyback off of that, or vice versa. That would piggyback off of this concept. So the Band Together concept history started with the railway project, and that briefly, as you noticed, and everybody has, I think, at this point, some of the railway bridges in Muskegon Heights, and Norton Shores have now been painted. That was part of the public art campaign, paid for and funded out of a benefactor who contributed thousands of dollars in conjunction with money that was raised. And so out of that conversation, I had an opportunity to say, hey, this was a great accomplishment with the bridges and getting them painted, but what about putting something specific in Muskegon Heights? So out of that discussion came the idea that I presented about doing something to celebrate the city as well as the school and the history of the school together. And so, this is an effort to, if we can bring those two things together, to break down the silos that exist in the services that we provide throughout the community. And the two big dogs that are in the community, not the only ones. There's about 6 different sectors that are silos in all communities, and particularly in our community. But the two big ones are the school system and the city government. And so looking at ways that we can work more collaboratively and cooperatively, and the council has already taken steps around and discussions about how the two boards, the city council and the school board, can come together and hold a joint meeting or meet together on a more regular basis. And so that is already in motion from that standpoint. But in terms of constructive ways that we can show the unity across those silos is an important aspect of how we collaboratively and collectively raise up our community and reach new heights. So the idea is to come up with a symbol of unity through this art project to establish a space that's flexible and interactive, and in the words of the title, band the community together. And so this is what you're looking at on your screen, is the conceptual overview of the reconfiguration of Rowan Park. And again, this is not something that has been codified in stone. It's just a concept that was presented in the visioning process that came out of reaching the new Muskegon Heights vision plan that was done by the DDA in conjunction with the Community Foundation and Muskegon Area First. And so you'll see on there's a concept for the Strand building and the potential there to either renovate it or rebuild it as a legacy building with retail, theater space on the bottom, office space on the second floor, and residential space above, with a parking structure that also would have retail space. And then in the park, building on a concept that was already in motion before I came on board, which is looking at a way that we can vacate Baker Street to be able to connect the green space to the right of Baker Space with the green space that we now call Rowan Park together, and also create an opportunity for residential construction on that green space between Baker Street and Leahy Street on the north end, with retail on the east end with residential, and on the south end with residential as well. And this all comes together with that space on Baker Street, which would be a walking promenade where we could have food trucks and events like art festivals or arts and crafts and the like, with that space in the middle that connects to the right with a fountain or something of the like to the space on the left, which would be what we're proposing as a splash pad. So these are some conceptual drawings of what a splash pad would look like in that location. And what's wonderful about this idea is there's a lot of support for funding, for donations around putting something like this in downtown urban park. And so we need to take advantage of the sources of those funding to be able to do something like this. And communities across the country have had a great deal of success with reinvigorating their downtown by bringing a splash pad type of event or installation to the community. So these are some quick perspectives on what that might look like. Now, splash pads are exciting during the summer for kids and as a meeting place for families. This shows what it would look like at night with the lighting in that area. And then if you look at it, I'm going to skip through this because I know we've got limited time. From the overview, what we're proposing would be unique about this splash pad would be that it can convert to a skating rink in the winter. And so this splash pad would be installed in conjunction with an art project. And again, that's the middle. And this is a conceptual design of what it could look like with printed concrete with the splash pad to the left and the walkway on Baker and a fountain to the right. These are some other drawings of what it could look like with pressed concrete. And then finally, this is what the sculpture would look like. Going back to the idea of bringing the school and the city together, the legacy of the drum major, which is a throwback to the high stepping band of Muskegon Heights. And so that would be the focal point of the art installation here in Muskegon Heights. And so this is the conceptual overview of what we're picturing could happen. There's funding to begin this process. And so we wanted to be able to give you, the listeners and the watchers, I'm sorry for the listeners that you couldn't see it, but for the watchers, you got a chance to see what was presented to folks last week in that PowerPoint presentation. So this is part of visioning the new Muskegon Heights and reaching new heights. So with that, I know that was quick a lot in a short period of time, but I will go ahead and wrap it up because we are out of time, and we can talk about this in more detail in future shows. So let's band together. That's the title of that installation. Thank you so much for joining us today on this program, Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. And remember, Monday, 5:30, we will have our next city council meeting. So please either show up or tune in on Zoom. Be blessed and have a great day.